All right, so we're joined by 2015 Velma Jackson graduate, Devin Perry, member of the Madison County Sheriff's Department. We thank you so much for joining us. I got a room full here with us at Velma Jackson. We're recording this for all of our college career readiness classes in Madison County schools: Rosa Scott, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. And we are in the law and public safety career cluster. So thank you so much for taking some time for us.
Appreciate y'all for having me.
All right. So, graduate of Velma Jackson 2015, you played pretty much every sport here. You were the quarterback of the football team. You power lifted. You played baseball. So, just take us through your high school experience because when I met you right after you graduated from high school, this was not what you wanted to do. So, take us through that process because it's kind of an interesting deal.
Okay, so yeah, like you said, man, I was multi-sport athlete when I was at Velma. I could say for myself, I think I was pretty good at just about everything I did. I mean, that's just what I think. But yeah, so leaving high school, didn't really have a clue. I was pretty much told, "Hey, you're good at football. You're gonna play football." So that's the wrong thing to tell a kid at that time. Uh, So I got in my head, I'm gonna play football the rest of my life. Like I ain't embedded that in my own head. Like my mom was telling me, you need to find you something to do. You need to find you something to do. I just kept telling her, hey, I'm playing football the rest of my life. I ain't worried about the other stuff. We'll figure that out later. But ended up, when I left Velma, I ended up going to Mississippi Delta for the summer, and that's where it kind of hit me at. Like I walked in the counselor's office, and he was like, "All right, we got to make your schedule. What you want to do?" And I looked at her. She looked at me. She looked at my mom. I looked at everybody in the room, and it was just quiet. And she was like, "You got to make a decision." And one of my teammates, Levante, me and him both, we went at the same time. So it was like, we both at the same time trying to figure out exactly what we gonna do. So my thing was, I'm gonna play football the rest of my life. So you know, that's all I know. But it came time to where I had to make a decision on exactly you know, what path I was gonna take. And at that time I didn't really know. So I just said, well, I'm just gonna take some regular classes and just some random regular classes. And that wasn't what I needed to do. I learned and that came back to play later on in my college career. But, you know, I ended up leaving there and I went to Holmes for a little while and I ended up getting my associates from Holmes. Left Holmes and I ended up going to Alcorn. And that's where it hit me again. It was like, okay, find you something to do. And I still had no clue. The only thing I knew was I miss playing football. So I ended up walking on to the team down there, got on the team and I ended up starting out at elementary education. So, I found out you had to take one extra test that you didn't have to take as far as going to secondary education. And I hate taking tests. So I was like, if I can avoid one test, I'll avoid that one test. So I ended up doing secondary and played football. Was able to graduate early because those classes that I had took prior to getting to Alcorn and maybe one or two while I was at Alcorn, they didn't count toward my major. Which when you're playing sports in college, you have to for lack of better words, you have to qualify as whatever
Yep.
your classification is. So if you're considered a junior, you have to have the hours that make you a junior. If you don't have those hours and you're playing sports, you're ineligible.
Yep.
So I became deemed ineligible because of my hours didn't match. I want to say I was deemed a junior and I only had enough hours as a sophomore at that
Wow.
time. So that kind of pushed me way back in. Essentially, I wasn't gonna be able to play football because I had so much of a gap that I had to make up. It was gonna be impossible to make that gap up in the time I needed to. So I went and talked to my counselor. Well, not my counselor. It was actually one of my teachers and she taught me a class like two or three classes every year with my elementary course. And I talked to her, and she enlightened me on the alternate route program, which she was over it. And, I trusted her. I was like, well, what do I need to do to get in this? She said, all you have to do is graduate. I said, well, that's the problem right now. I'm trying to play football and I'm way behind. So I ended up just like doing what everybody kind of, I don't want to say frown upon, but some people frown upon it. I changed my major to general studies, which is basically whatever you take, whatever you want, and at the end of your college career, you get a general diploma.
Right.
But I had taken so many classes toward a certain major, I was able to. What they don't really tell you is, even though it's general studies, you still have to have a focus. Like there's still like classes that are focused. It's just made for people. I want to say mostly like for athletes who have that problem that I had, where you didn't know what you wanted to do, and you took a bunch of classes, then you later on figure out what you wanted to do. Now to avoid being behind, that's what I
Yeah.
did. So that allowed me to be back eligible to play football. So I finished the spring. Well, no, I finished the fall out, and we got ready to start spring. And my counselor told me, she was like, "Well, if you do XYZ, you can graduate in May." So I took some time. I thought about it. I was like, I graduated in May. Do I stay in school and go to grad school, or do I find something to do and keep playing ball? Essentially, it was stay in school, spend money, or get out in the real world and make money. And with me having a child at the time, it was pretty much a no brainer. And I pretty much had a job already set up that another former teacher that was at Velma, he was the principal. Coach Martin, he was up in League Central. And I pretty much graduated, or well, while I was finishing up my spring semester at Alcorn, I was going from Alcorn all the way back up to Carthage and helping coach football for the spring. So I walked across the stage and right into a job, which I mean a lot of people don't have that luxury of doing. I
Yeah.
just had some good people in my corner and I was able to do it. So I'll fast forward real quick. I did 2 years at League Central. I left there and I did a year and a half at Northwest Rankin, coaching and teaching. Um, some stuff some stuff that I really didn't like to deal with was I was dealing with, and it made me want a career change. But I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do because, like I said, my whole life was surrounded around football, and all I knew was I wanted to be around football. Well, good thing I can say I'm still able to be around football even to this day. I referee, and when I do have time, I come up to the school where y'all are at, and I help coach. There's DBs every once in a while, so I'm still able to give back to the school and
Yeah.
be able to be around the game. So that kind of satisfies that football side of me. But I was looking for a career that kind of was natural. Like I didn't want to sit behind a desk. I didn't want to dress up in a suit and tie every day. I wanted to find something that was comfortable and something that kind of made me feel like me. And that's essentially law enforcement was what somebody told me I should look into. And I did look into it and I was like, well, it don't seem like a bad career. And it didn't really hit me until after I graduated from the academy that, okay, you gotta do this for real now. Like ain't no more guessing about it. It's for real now. And, you know, I began to like it. I started out in South Haven and I enjoyed it up there. I came back home and I worked out in Flowood where I was the last time I talked to y'all. I was
Yeah.
there. So, I ended up, this is where I wanted to be to start my career anyway. But I decided to move to South Haven because I wanted to kind of just get away from the environment, what I was used to, and be able to just focus on my job. So when I got ready to move back home, they actually called me while I was working at Flowood and offered me, the job. But I ended up telling them, well, not offering me a job, offered me an interview. And I ended up telling them, well, I'm working at Flowood right now. Well, the opportunity came back around. I was like, I ain't missing out on this now. So, I jumped on it and I was able to get on with the sheriff department. And here I am now.
That's awesome. Now, obviously, everybody watches the cop shows, even me. And the media and movies loves to portray cops as let's kick down doors, let's pull guns, let's do car chases, let's chase the bad guys and shoot them up and and wrangle them like uh, a rodeo wrangler. Now, and even though sometimes that does happen, that is such a small part of police work. So let everybody know the reality of what types of things does someone that is a police officer or in your case a deputy sheriff do, because it's not just what we see on TV.
Nah, it's definitely. I tell a lot of people that is so the shows that you watch is so dramatized because they use to make money. I mean, that's what they do. They get your attention, they get views, they figure out what people like to watch, and they just make more of it. So I've had the opportunity to work for a municipality, which is a police department, and for the sheriff department, which they're the same but different. So when you're working in the city, you do a lot of, well, depending on the city you work for. Like I started out in South Haven, so I can only kind of speak on where I worked at because each three of the places that I have been totally different. So I worked up in South Haven, and most of the time people look at South Haven as they call it the top of Mississippi. You come down 55, you see your outlet malls, your stores, this and that. People come down, they visit. You go over on the east side of town, you see the big amphitheater, nice restaurants. But where people don't go is on the west side of town. The west side
Yeah.
of town is the more, and although it's like there's South Haven is a nice area in spots, but it's just like any area. It has its sore spot. So I mean, it was a spot over there, where pretty much we had to focus on that area. We call them wards up there. So that ward where other wards you had two cars in or two officers in, that ward at the time would have five officers in it because it was the most,
Dang.
it had the most call volume, and that was the ward that I like working in. I'm just like I like to get out, go do stuff, answer calls, help people out. So that ward was like the busiest one. So there it was somewhat of what you would think of as police work, where you get your calls about your shootings, your domestics, your I want to say car chases. We had cars run from us, but that's that was like very very in a 12-hour span. That was probably like maybe 2 hours of your job. The rest of your job is patrolling, basically just riding around, being seen. Because
Yeah.
that helps more than anything is having police presence, which is why they put so many cars in that particular ward to be seen. Because no matter what people might think, bad guys don't want to go to jail. They don't want to go to jail. They want to wait till we're not there to do whatever they're gonna do, and then they run. So police presence helps out more than anything. Like before
Yeah.
you turn on those lights, before you get out of your car and walk around, just seeing that car drive past will make people stop, look, and think about what they do before they do it.
Yeah.
So up there, you got a mixture of basically community policing and like actual what you would think of as police work. I mean, take people to jail, that's part of it. But the other side that people don't see is up there we went to medical calls as well.
Yeah.
So not only do we have to take people to jail, but if somebody's sick, like the one thing that stood out to me when I was working up there is I was taught in the academy, and I was one of them. I was like, man, this that ain't gonna happen. They just talking, they just dramatizing it. But they was teaching us CPR at the academy, and we had to do CPR on babies. Although I didn't do CPR on this child, but they taught us they was like, if a baby is this, a baby is that, this is what you do. So I was like, yeah, I'm learning it, I know it, but I'm probably not gonna do this. I'm probably not gonna have to use this. And they used the analogy. They was like, well, one day you might be on a job, you're gonna go to a call, a baby's gonna be basically lifeless, and their child's mother is gonna throw that baby in your hand and say, "Save my baby." And I'm like, man, that'll never happen. Like nobody's gonna do that. Well, it did. It actually happened. I went to the
Wow.
call and got there. The baby, it had some type of already medical issues, and you got there, and the baby had a heart monitor on him. So the baby was essentially lifeless. And when I got there, the mother literally tossed her baby to me and said, "Please save my baby." And the initial shock was like, I remember somebody telling me this was gonna happen, and I didn't believe it. And I think that was probably maybe 4 to 5 months out of the academy, and it had already happened. So that's kind of the gist of what goes on there. And essentially, the baby ended up being okay. Like I don't know if it was just the shock of of her throwing the baby, and I caught him, and it kind of startled him or woke him up or what. But the baby was able to make it through it. But that's kind of what I dealt with there. When I went to Flowood, where I was the last time I talked to y'all, that's a place of a lot of community policing. Community policing is when you basically serve the community. Like I know they say protect and serve. We literally serve the community where there's like changing tires, escorting people. I mean, yeah, people go to Flowood and they know like yeah they stop people left and right. Yeah, I mean that's part of the job, but we do a lot of neighborhood drive. Like we drive to a lot of neighborhoods. They have a whole lot of like things where they get the police out to be seen within the community, and it's like you're like a true community police officer. They don't have a lot of crime in Flowood. I mean, the most that they probably would do is because of so many businesses, you have shoplifting that happen. But I mean, it's a true place where you police the community, and you just basically you're there to be seen, and that's kind of it. Like they don't have that high crime volume. Um, Now where I'm at in the county is different from both of those. Like we're we're like the rural deputies. Like they use the term dirt road deputies when they talk about sheriff deputies. That's completely true. We ride the dirt roads, we ride the back roads. We we we're like the community police for the country people. Like the people who
Yeah.
live way back off. I think we got one road. It's so far back out of this. They call it Fire Tower Road, where I think it turns into a dirt road, and that's us. We're back in the woods. Like you see us, our trucks are gonna be nasty sometimes because we just came off a dirt road. That's us. We we service the people out in the county. Like you might see us ride through your areas like Canton, Madison, Ridgeland, or whatnot, even Flora, but we let those places take care of them. If
Yep.
they need our help, we help them. But we try and let those places take care of them, and we service all the people that are farther out in the county. Um, it's a lot different because call time, call and volume. Call volume is a lot lower out in the county because it's the county. Like most people out there are older people or they're spread out. You don't have 300 people living right up under each other. So
Yeah.
they keep down a lot of confusion. Um, Response time is a lot longer. Whereas I've been used to for the last year and a half, been able to respond to people in 3 to 5 minutes, if that long. Now, at times, it could take me 20 minutes to get somewhere because
Wow.
the county is so big and just because of the roads you have to go on. And the thing about it, we have to we have to make sure we take care of us because I have been on some runs, going to calls, and I have scared the mess out of myself because like the roads that you think when you're driving at the normal speed limit is not that rough. It is rough when you're on a road that says 35 miles per hour and you're going 60 because
Wow.
you have a call that you have to get to. You have lights on, sirens on, and you're trying to hurry up and get there because somebody's really in trouble.
Yeah.
And those calls do come out from time to time. But the thing I can say about the county, like our people that we serve, they're not as rowdy because most of the time they're in the bed by the time I come on. I go to work at 11 o'clock at night, and I get off at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's a weird time because most people at that time, if they are working, they're already in the swing of things. I'm having to wake up and get ready to get in the swing of things.
Yeah. Now, before I get to the students' questions, one thing I did want to talk about too is that any type of law enforcement, I don't think people realize takes great writing and communication skills. And it's so important to learn how to type, to learn how to speak, because even if it's not a shoot 'em up situation, which most of the time it isn't, you're still dealing with people that are very upset. You're dealing with people that are scared. You're dealing with people that may have questions. And you've got to be the voice of reason and know how to talk to people, know how to explain things. Sometimes people just may, and if you're directing traffic, people may ask, okay, if this is blocked, where do I go? You got to be able to talk to people. And then you got to be able to write the report. That can mean the difference between somebody going to jail and somebody getting off. So how important are those type things in law enforcement?
So to answer that question, very. Because like you said, the report writing is basically what happened. Like it is exactly what happened because when you go to court, the people who are on the jury, the judge, they weren't there when the incident happened. So they only are able to live through whatever report you write. Which when you're writing that report, you have to make sure that it is detailed, like down to like if they used a certain word, make sure you put it in a report. If they said a phrase this way, make sure you put it in a report. Make sure you put it in quotation marks and you say who said what. Because things can be misconstrued if you're too vague in report writing. Vagueness in report writing leaves so many questions. Like I look at my reports and I want to pretty much I say dummy proof to where the a 5 year old, if a 5 year old can read those type of words, to understand exactly what happened. And that's one of the biggest things in law enforcement that it can make or break a case is by what you wrote in your report and the truthfulness. Because nowadays everybody wears a body cam. Like I don't know too many law enforcement agencies that don't really wear them. So although it's going to be, your words on paper, those body cams are another source of I would think is report writing. Because what you don't remember, you can turn that body camera on and it will refresh your memory, or it can serve as a base of what actually happened. And you mentioned like communication skills. That's one of the biggest things because communicating with these people out here is something that can make a bad situation better, and if you do it wrong, it can make a half decent situation very bad because you have to be able to talk to people at their worst. Because 9 times out of 10, well, I ain't gonna say 9 times, half the time that when we show up, it's for a bad situation. Like this person's at their lowest right now, and if you can't communicate in a good way to these people and get them to kind of either come down off of whatever they're on, then you can have a fight on your hands. If you say the wrong thing or if you use the wrong tone, use the wrong words. So you kind of have to be able to not get on their level, but you have to be able to talk on the level that they understand. So being on their level and talking on their level is two different things. Like being on their level is if they're hollering, screaming, fussing, and cussing at you, you're hollering, screaming, fussing, and cussing at them. That does nothing for situations. You have to talk to where they can understand you, like whatever. You have to find ways to communicate with them on whatever level that they seem to understand. And I mean, what is it? Public speaking, I think is the class in college, if they still call it that. Um, that teaches you how to stand up in front of people and talk. Like public speaking, I took it as a joke at first. I was like, man, why do we need to sit here in front of a classroom of people and read something. Like, why? Like, what does that even do for me? And the more I work this job, I understand getting up in front of people that you don't know and talking to them, that's a very important skill to have because it can get you through a lot of situations if you can get up,
Absolutely.
stand in front of people and talk.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. I had another officer one time tell me, when I had somebody in the car that I have to take to jail, I have to remember this is probably the lowest point they've ever had. So I have to be mindful of that in the way I communicate with them. So it's always a high stress situation for everybody. So having those communication skills is so important.
yeah, like especially like you said, I've had people in the back of my trucks and cars where they've asked me to turn music on while I'm going to the jail. Like, whatever makes that person happy at the time. I mean, they're going to jail. They're at the lowest point in their life at this point, whether they've been there before or not. This is a low point in their life. Hey, whatever is gonna keep that person calm, chill, relaxed, make my job easier. Like, hey, you want to listen to music? I turn around, I slide that window back. Like, what kind of music you like to listen to? Hey, we're gonna jam all the way to the jail. Hey, this the ride you gotta take. So I might as well make it as comfortable as I can for you.
I got you. Well, I do have some questions from the students. I'll get to as many of these as I can. This is an interesting one to start off. This is Mila McCullough. She's in 10th grade, one of our Blue Diamond dancers. And she asked, what do you do to prevent people from being discriminated against that may be immigrants or non-citizens?
So I live by everybody's the same. I treat everybody the same way. Like if I go on a call, the only difference might be whatever language you speak. That's the only difference when I go on call. Everybody gets treated the same in whatever the situation is. Or at the same time, you have to know the situation you're in and know what's going on, and then you handle it different. But you can't treat anybody no different because of the way their ethnicity, their skin color. Like, you can't do that. Like that's the quickest way to lose your job and essentially lose credibility in anything that you do, because now you're gonna be questioned every time you and just we're just gonna say like if you pull over five black guys and one white guy, like okay, they're gonna start looking like, why are you pulling over so many of these guys and not enough of these guys? And then vice versa. If you pull over 20 Hispanic guys and nobody else, like, okay, why are you doing this? And the thing about it is you have to know you have to know the area you're in and know what's going on. Like you can't sit out here and just try and target any type of person because that would get you in a lot of trouble. Like it makes you get questioned, it makes you get looked at, like from the admin point of view, because what are you doing? Like, why are you doing what you do? And if they sit you down and ask you these questions and you can't explain that to them, like you get in some serious trouble, and most of the time it's termination. So when you go on the scene, and like I said, you have to use your public speaking skills. You almost have to be like a chameleon. You have to be able to fit in everywhere you go because like no situation is gonna be the same. No person is gonna have the same attitude. Like you have to be able to go into a just say a call where it was a domestic and be able to switch right over and deal with possibly like a lady that just needs somebody to talk to. So you have to go from a fight over to just a talk. You have to be able to do that within a split second, and sometimes within the same call. Because this person over here might be so irate, and then you got this person over here calm. You can't use the same tone or tactics with the person that's irate as you do with the person that's calm. So that's just like with people, period. You have to know what you're dealing with, know who you're dealing with, and know how to deal with those people on the same level and basically be neutral because we're not on anybody's side. We're there to take down notes, write the report, and we let the judge determine and what goes on, what happens to
Got
that person.
Absolutely. I got time for two more. This is Madison Sims. She's in 10th grade, one of our volleyball players. And she asked, what was the hardest part about training to become a police officer?
Running. I hate to run. I absolutely hate it. I do it because I did it because I had to. I'm more of a sprinter than a long distance runner. Um, I treat it like track. I don't know what possesses people to want to join a track team, get on the track, and run for no reason. Like I don't know. I don't like it.
But yeah, even though Velma Jackson's been winning state championships in track, it's not for the faint of heart. I got one more. This is Bryson Stevens. He's in ninth grade, and he asked, "What made you lean toward law enforcement, knowing that it could be a dangerous job?"
Well, life is a dangerous job. I mean, you kind of can't look at everything as well, I might die doing this. I might die doing that. I mean, hey, you go to sleep at night. You may or may not wake up in the morning. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, like I've been in a school setting, teaching and coaching. Nowadays, that like just showing up to work at a school is a dangerous job. You never know what's gonna happen. I mean, if people keep up what's going on in the world and they shoot in schools and nobody knows when it's gonna happen or what, it just happens. So I look at my job as at least when I get the call, I know what I'm going into. I know I've been trained to deal with this situation. So I'm not gonna say it's less dangerous, but the I have a more sense of knowing how to deal with a situation, what I'm going into, and knowing that okay, this could happen. Like on my way, like literally on my way to every call, in my head, I go through all the possible situations. How this could go very good, how this could go okay, and how this could go terribly bad. Every situation, every call, because there's three sides to every call. It's gonna be a good side, a neutral side, and a very bad side. So you just never know what's gonna happen. So, I mean, it's a dangerous job. I mean, like I said, I put on a gun every day. I put on a vest, a bulletproof vest every day. I ride in my truck with a ballistic helmet and a plate carrier. Anytime you have to take those things to work with you or you use those things every day, you have a dangerous job. But I enjoy it. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy doing my job the right way. And, I take pride in what I do because I know I'm doing it for the right reasons. I'm there to help. I'm not I'm not there to hurt anybody. I'm there to make whatever situation that I arrive on end in the best possible way every single time.
Awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, and as always, we thank you so much for joining us. But a couple things before we go. First of all, one thing that I always talk about with anytime I have anybody in law enforcement is that when dealing with anybody in a law enforcement as a citizen, that's not the side of the road is not the time to have an argument. It's not the time to show out. You will have a chance to state your case. That's when bad things happen to a lot of people is when people want to, especially our kids, let their parents handle that. Let their parents talk to an attorney or whatever. There's plenty of people that are out there that will fight for you. But doing it on the side of the road is not the time to make a scene.
No, like so we just talking about dangerous things. Like more police officers and sheriff deputies and state troopers, like any law enforcement. That's the most dangerous parts of our job is when we turn those lights on, we're on the side of the road. More people are killed doing that than anything. Whether it's and it's not necessarily by, the person in the car. It's traffic. Like I tell people all the time, I said this stop. Well, I don't tell them all the time, but it might like when I do get a chance to talk to people on stops and stuff, I tell them, hey, this stop could go one of three ways. You can go home, you can get a ticket, or you can go to jail. Like we're not arguing, like none of that, because essentially, I mean, just if you run a stop sign, just to be completely honest with you, if you run a stop sign, I stop you and I write you a ticket, that's enough to take you to jail. I mean, it's an affidavit. Affidavits are what you use when you basically take somebody to jail. That's your reason for it. So I'm not gonna sit here. I'm not gonna argue with you. Like there's a court date. I tell them it's a court date on the bottom of your ticket. If you want to dispute that ticket, go to that court date, and I'll show up and we'll talk about it then. The side of the road is not the place to argue because it's dangerous for me. And it's dangerous for the person inside that car. So
Yeah.
I'm not the type of person that's gonna argue with you on the side of the road. I am quick to tell you have a nice day or have a better day, and I'm gonna get back in my vehicle and get you off the side of the road so I can get myself off the side of the road. Anything beyond that, like they call it it's a lawful order. Once you're told to do something by a law enforcement officer, once those blue lights are on, or once I show up to that scene for a call, it's a lawful order. Like, hey, if I tell you that's enough, have a nice day, drive off, that's what you need to do. Any officer, if they tell you that, that's what you need to do. That court date is where you argue. Like we don't argue on the side of the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, especially for our kids, let your parents handle that. That's not the place to argue. But the last thing before we go, obviously, and I speak for so many people. We're so proud to call you an alum of Velma Jackson. Growing up in the same community, walking these same halls, sitting in these same rooms, you've become extremely successful. But we need more young people to consider getting into this field and being part of the law enforcement community. So why should they really consider getting into this field?
Well, like I said, it's a thing where first off, realize if it's for you or not, because it just has to be for you. It's not one of those things where you can just walk in one day and say, "I want to do it." It's one of those things that you making a life decision because I don't know anybody that wants to spend anywhere from 12 to 22 weeks of their life just to do something for a little while and then do something else. So it's a life decision. Like this is something if you truly like doing things for your community, like helping people out, like just overall trying to make people's days better, or it's not about taking nobody to jail, arresting this person, like getting this and that. It's really about trying to make somebody's day better. And sometimes
Absolutely.
making somebody's day better is taking somebody else to jail. It is what it is.
Absolutely.
But when you're in it to make somebody's day better, I mean, you can have a long career.
That's awesome. Well, again, we thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule. Devin Perry, 2015 graduate of Velma Jackson, member of the Madison County Sheriff's Department. Thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all.
I talk to you soon, buddy.
All right.